Hello, and thank you for taking the time to volunteer to work with our students in any of the capacities that you may currently be volunteering. As part of the HIB law and requirements, anyone volunteering in a school building must be provided HIB training. The HIB law was originally enacted due to a student, Tyler Clemente, who attended college and took his own life due to the bullying that was ensued. In 2017, Mallory Grossman, a middle school student in New Jersey, unfortunately followed in kind and took her own life due to the bullying that she endured in school. In January of 2022, due to her parents' advocacy, Governor Murphy signed into law a new piece of legislation attached to the HIB laws as they previously existed. These are now referred to as Mallory's Law. Under Mallory's Law, penalties will climb for parents or guardians who fail to comply with court-ordered requirements for their children to attend anti-bullying classes once they've been found guilty of a HIB. The costs of the penalty are now rising to $100 to $500 from the current $25 to $100. Another change that is being made is that districts prior to January of 2022 were allowed to make the decision as to whether or not something was a conflict or a HIB and to move forward with the HIB investigation or to stop it based on the fact that it was just a conflict. This change in 2022 now means that anything that is reported to the HIB team that is determined to not be investigated must be reported to the superintendent. So if you move forward with the investigation or you decide not to move forward with the investigation, anything documented as a potential HIB now has to be brought before the superintendent. The superintendent, in turn, must then report out to the Board of Education. The board and the superintendent may decide to either uphold the building's decision to not move forward with an investigation, or to deny it and require that the building move forward with the investigation, despite their initial claims that it was just a conflict. The final change is that districts must create progressive discipline plans for repeat offenders. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying per our board policy can be found online, and it's policy number 5512. This just explains that all students are entitled to a civil environment to achieve high academic standards, and that harassment, intimidation, or bullying or violent behaviors will not be condoned by the district. It further goes on to state that since students learn by example, school administrators, faculty, staff, and volunteers should be commended for demonstrating appropriate behavior, treating others with civility and respect, and refusing to tolerate harassment, intimidation, or bullying. HIB records are not forwarded to post-secondary institutions. However, discipline records are. The exact legal definition of HIB, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying, is any gesture, any written, verbal, or physical act, or any electronic communication, whether it is a single incident or a series of incidents, that is reasonably perceived as being motivated by either any actual or perceived characteristics such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or mental, physical, or sensory disability, or by any other distinguishing characteristic, and that takes place on school property, at any school-sponsored function, on a school bus, or off school grounds, as provided for in the New Jersey Code, and that substantially disrupts or interferes with orderly operation of the school or the rights of other students, and that a reasonable person should know if the circumstances will have an effect of physical or emotional harm on a pupil or damaging of the pupil's property, or placing a pupil in reasonable fear of physical or emotional harm to his or her person or damage to his or her property, or has the effect of insulting or demeaning any pupil or group of pupils, or creates a hostile educational environment for the pupil by interfering with the pupil's education, or by severely or pervasively causing physical or emotional harm to the pupil. When these instances are reported, The HIB specialists are charged with determining if it's a conflict or an actual instance of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. A conflict is often viewed as equal power or friends who are having a disagreement. It can be fairly resolved by compromise and mediation. It involves people with similar degrees of power. There's an equal emotional reaction on both parties. There are efforts on the part of both parties to solve the problem. Both parties are responsible for the wrongdoing and is reciprocal. Both parties contribute to the conflict. So two students who are having a disagreement in the cafeteria or during recess and they're arguing back and forth is viewed as a conflict because both students have equal power and they're both involved in the conflict. An HIB, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying, is an imbalance of power, typically not occurring between friends. A fair resolution involves a change in the behavior of the bully. The target has no concession to make. So this means that only one person has to have change in their behavior. It involves a person or persons exerting their needs or interest, strong emotional reaction from the victim, and little or no emotional reaction from the bully. There is no effort to solve the problem. The bully is the only one responsible for the wrongdoing, and it is one-sided. One party instigates the target. The school district's anti-bullying structure begins with myself, Ms. Janine Figarelli. I am the district anti-bullying coordinator. From there, at each of the buildings, you have your building principals, and then you have your school anti-bullying specialists. Not everyone will conduct the investigation, but they are all qualified to be able to conduct the investigation if the need should arise. What you should do if you see bullying or an allegation is presented to you. As a school volunteer, there are many circumstances where you may be with children in a small group or a large group, depending on the activity. You are required to report an incident that is perceived as being HIB to a school administrator. One of the other changes to the law is that this now must be available on the school website. Below is the link where you can either report anonymously or you can include your name. That is up to you as a volunteer to the district. This will immediately report the instance that you are providing us to the building administrator and to myself, the anti-bullying coordinator. From there, the building principal will assign an anti-bullying specialist to begin the investigation. Once it is complete, the determinations will be made. At the initiation of this, the parents will be informed that there is an HIB investigation happening that involves their students. They will not know who reported it to us. They will not know how it came about. But this is an important piece to helping stop bullying in the schools and in the community at various activities that take place connected to the school. Thank you for protecting our students and for coming in and volunteering your time to work with them. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me either via phone or my email. Once again, I would like to thank you for volunteering your time and for supporting our students.